Heavy metal rock.
Global mind.
Who shepherds found, wise men bowed down, the word became flesh, in him was life. Who is this child?
Hi, I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on My Global Mind, we are speaking with Hall of Fame keyboardist and songwriter of Journey, as well as Christian contemporary artist Jonathan Cain. Jonathan, welcome. I'm excited to talk to you about your two releases.
Well, thank you for having me, Robert. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
My pleasure. So, I speak with a lot of artists who put out Christmas albums, such as yourself, and they tell me that they have to work on these albums 6 months early in advance to get it released, timed out perfectly. When did you start working on this release?
Yeah, it was in the spring, actually. I had an idea to do an EP to sort of, it was a follow-up on the 2017 Christmas album, Unsung Noel.
Right.
And, I do a show every year, and I was looking for new songs, and I wrote a song last year called Behold, and I wrote a song the year before that called Wonder of Wonders.
Mm-hmm.
So there were two songs sitting there that were kind of, Wonder of Wonders was a single that actually got some airplay, that was written with Ian Eskelin, Tony Wood, of course, Michael Tait sings on that with me. And it was all by itself as a single. And I thought, why don't I'm 3 songs away from an EP. So God put it on my heart, to get going. And I kind of got distracted. I was a pilot for quite a few months. I was trying to get my pilot's license. And I realized it was going to consume me, just take over. And I was doing pretty well. And then I had to stand back a little bit and realize I'm 72, I did learn a lot, and I'm going to get back up there. But God said, get back in the studio, John, like me. It's about me, What about? And I said, okay, Lord, show me, And so we put these songs, and started. It's this typical creativity, your process of looking in the word, and look what hasn't been said, and I was looking at different articles online, and then it just hit. The songs came, it was like one after the next, the way they always do. And I wrote 3 songs in about 2 weeks.
Wow. And when did you start writing them?
It was a spring. Let's see. Yeah, it was probably March, April, probably yes, June. I think they all came together, and I had to get back to the studio to record them and sing them, and get them all in. But I started them here in this room where I've written so many things, my little private studio, and the guys in Nashville were able to get them done, and the singers on the EP are from let's see, it would be Tim McGraw's lead background group, and they're amazing singers. And so I was lucky enough to get them. They weren't busy, and get a couple of days with them. And really, I'm blessed to have Tanya Henscheroff and Perry Coleman singing with me, who did an amazing job. I wasn't there. They sent me the roughs. I love this. This is great, So
yeah. They're big tracks. They're big musical tracks. I thought they were fantastically well done.
It's pretty large, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Addiction and Sound, yeah.
When you were writing these, did you have to set up that little room in the Christmas spirit? You put up a Christmas tree to kind of get in the mood, or is it just you don't need that?
No, it's all in my head. I think in the end, I have this. I'm able to just go there and drop myself in the nativity, and really this album, I really wanted to focus in on one idea that our Holy Father gave the greatest gift of love by giving his only son.
Right.
And what that equates to is Christmas. The message of Christmas is love,
Right.
I felt like I wanted to just boil it down into a real concise way of saying, think about it, folks. It is the greatest gift of love, act of love that a father can possibly, and the idea that Jesus not only came for our salvation, but but to love each other. He loved everyone.
Yep.
It wasn't, who's gonna throw the first stone. uh, and then the way he performed his first miracle at a wedding,
That's
he
right.
understood what love was, and he loved his apostles even though they were just lost in space half the time.
Regular
uh,
guys.
Unconditional love, and I think that's something we can all think about. I don't think you can really have the love of God until you love each other.
I agree.
We try to teach that in church, that love has to be, you have to give love in order to be blessed. It is love. So it's fun stuff. The
That,
heart
I apologize. That kind of brings me to my next question of like, who is this child? Great song, very inspiring lyrics. What do you want your fans? Is that what you want your fans to take away from it? The title of the album, Christmas is Love, and this child is special.
the whole concept of the just to magnify these many miracles, like the angels and the shepherds and the star, and the dangerous time that Jesus was born in. Put all those things together and realize what what really happened, and it's so profound, because he's a game changer.
Yeah.
He's this helpless child that is in grave danger at the time, because all those firstborn sons were going to be
Right.
and there's Joseph, who's kind of just obeying, and there's Mary that's not sure, but the angels showed up. And the one thing that always bothered me about the one song at Christmas they play is Mary, did you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mary knew. What are we doing here? It's in the Bible. There were angels coming to both of them saying, this is coming down, you guys. And they're teenagers, they're afraid, but they're obedient to what's going to happen, to destiny. And it was destined that that helpless child laying there would become our savior. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It's a tremendous story too. It's in the Bible. Was there any thought to adding some classic Christmas songs to this album? Holiday classics, or did you just want to keep this pure to what you were doing?
I did on the last one. I think there's enough covers, honestly.
I do too.
I'm not Nat King Cole. I'm not Celine Dion. So why? And if my job as a psalmist is to observe some different moves at Christmas, and that's I asked my publicist, and he said there's really no reason, John. And go there. Although we do, in my concert, we do other things, and I do these TSO medleys, and I have a tremendous guitarist, Kevin Eknes, who's kind of like a Steve Lukather,
Mm-hmm.
and so we kind of jazz it up with these arrangements. I've got pretty cool arrangements, that are very exciting, and it adds a lot of depth to the show itself. So it's not just all me singing, and Brianna Olamar is going to sing, she'll sing some songs that she does a great job with, "O Holy Night," and we do "Ain't We Have Heard," and I do "Do You Know What I Know," and just stuff like that. But unless you have something so profound and so different, why bother, for me? So I did wanted to make this a personal, intimate, just sort of an offering, like a Christmas tithe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
This is me saying thank you for my life, and I understand my Holy Father, all he wants is the best for me, and that's what I feel like I'm drawn to do that. If I'm crazy, maybe I'm crazy, but God puts these things on my heart and said, no, do this, and so boom, there I go, and I'll probably have another single out in the spring.
Awesome. Awesome. You talk about, receiving this gift of music and, this ability that you have. Is there any songs that were coming through you, maybe, just coming through you and right out onto the recording lyrically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I wrote the lyrics to Who Is This Child, and I couldn't actually locate what the music was going to be, and I just didn't know, and I waited patient. I have to be patient with this stuff until I knew what it was going to be, and I knew it had to be tender and something uh, provocative. Uh, Whenever you sing something like a question, that and melodically it has to reflect that question,
Yes.
and then it has to resolve, the answer and then the question. And to me, that's very important, that your melodies are designed to, to go along with the lyrics. So when the lyric is sung, you're taking the listener to the right place, and so that song just all of a sudden poured out. I had in front of me and it poured out, and I was like, oh man, this is it. So I had my phone and I was able to capture it. So that one came rather quickly, but again, there's a lyrics sitting there,
Yeah.
And so many times, like even on Arise, that record I did, I had waited for that melody. Let God arise and his enemies be scattered. I was waiting. What is it? And again, boom, it came to me, but a lot of songwriters will just jump on something and before they know what it is, and I really always feel that you really need to know and live with what you've written, live with it, feel it, look at it, sleep on it, and then boom,
Yeah.
So it's a funny process, and writing for the Lord is just, it's a lot of patience and just being still. It's my way of worshiping, I guess, with God is those times, where I'm not quick to rush it on the piano necessarily. I might just sit in a room for a couple hours and play with ideas and then go away, come back and do it again. So like, that didn't hit me, and if I can't remember what it is, it's not worth it. It's like when Paul McCartney always said, we didn't have tape recorders. We couldn't remember what we wrote, then it wasn't worth anything anyway.
Wow.
So that, for me, I have to be able to just pull it out. This works for me,
Do these things all happen to you? Do they come to you on the guitar? Do they come to you on the piano? Do they come to you lyrically? Do they come to you melody? How does a typical song start for you? Or is it all of the above?
I think it's lately with the worship, it's been a lot of getting the lyric right. I've been really focused in, because when you're writing about Jesus and God, boy, you better get your facts straight. You can't
Yeah.
just be pontificating some concept of your own. If it doesn't hold
Right.
water in the word, then it's not worth it. So I always give it the acid test and make sure that everything I write, uh, goes back to the Bible, goes back to the true, what the word says. And so then it's up to me to kind of take it to the next level, and like when I came up with the idea that Hope was born, I knew it was going to be up tempo. I knew it was going to be joyful, uh, and but I had to wait. What is it going to be? In my first line, um, heaven roared, Hope was born. It didn't come to me till the end. I didn't know what was it that Hope was born. And I thought it was so profound to say that heaven did roar, because it was such a mighty moment in history, in of all history, that is a wonder of wonders. And so it was fun to kind of put those things together. And then I remembered, as in the 80s, the Mannheim Steamroller
Right.
band. So I wanted to put that Mannheim back in, into the song and say, well, here's a Mannheim Steamroller worship Christmas song. Bells and horns and everything, we're going to put the whole kitchen sink in that. And I was quite pleased. I waited, but again, there was that patience, and just, letting it simmer. I mean, I think it's kind of like the grapes on the vine. You want to wait till it's ready, you know,
Yeah.
and but we can't just, pull grapes that aren't ready, pull them off the vine. It's not, it has to mature. You have to know what it is. You have to live it. And that's been fun for me because it's a reflective thing. It brings me closer to God. I think working on these songs, I feel like he's with me. I'm asking him
Mhm.
for some anointing, God, help me out here, and it's just between you and him. And that's the greatest part about writing worship. It's almost a selfish thing, that I hardly share any of it with anybody else because it's something that God and I do together.
Yeah.
And we do it alone, and occasionally, you can write with someone and get something great, but this kind of stuff I've decided that I don't need a lot of people around me. All I need is, some stillness in my piano or a guitar and the Holy Spirit, and I'll just go. And I'm surrounded by great musicians all the time. And if somebody wants to call me and write a song, I'm game. But these days I'm an older guy and I kind of know what I want to do. I've been there, done that. I don't need a producer. I don't need a label telling me what to, this is my freedom, and my, like I said, my Christmas tithe.
You talked a little bit about once, really making sure that you got the message right, making sure that the music came to you correctly. Does your perception of this music or the albums change once they be released out to the public? Because both of these albums are out now. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
No. I can go back to my first album and, like on the television show Paula and I do for Daystar, Paula Today and Faithfully, we have a couple of shows. Albeit they'll let me feature, some of the tunes from these albums, and I go all the way back to, the first one I did, and they still hold up. I was talking with Guy Penrod, who I admire very much, and he said, John, every song you write for God is timeless. It's just timeless,
Yeah.
and you remember where you were, in your walk in faith, and you remember what drove you to write. It might have been a sermon. I wrote a song called Roar on
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Yeah, on the Rise album. And it came from a sermon, that was a mighty sermon from this pastor from Orange County. And he talked about middle heaven and about how timid prayers just get batted down by the enemy. Like, how you have to be very specific about what you pray for,
Right.
and do it with intent,
Yeah.
amount of intention. I thought it was so interesting. I'm like, right, okay. In between heaven and earth, there's this place where prayers just, nah, it's interesting. Prayer is something that seems to be a lost art, we're trying to get in our church, trying to get people to get back to prayer, to get back to spending some time in prayer, because we believe prayer changes things, and so we had a pastor come in our last conference. And how many hours a day do you pray? Lift your arm hand up if you pray an hour a day. If you play more than an hour a day, and there's hardly any hands that go up.
Yeah.
Hey, and
How many hours did you spend on Facebook, right?
yeah, no, that's true. And sometimes I think it's good to get back there and at least look at it. And Paula's just recently preached about building an altar, and the art of building an altar, and how important it was, in the Old Testament to have a place in which to pray, and the Ark of the Covenant, and of course, all the feasts that happened. It was all about intimate relationship with God. So it's got to be more than just church,
Yeah.
And I love that concept. I'm, getting back to that again and revisiting prayer. And
Right.
we think Christmas is a good time to reset.
Right.
We have, on the last album, I wrote a song called "Oh Lord, Lead Us." And I was looking for a New Year's worship song, and I didn't really find one that said, you know, lead us into something great, you know, because you're it, you know. And even young men get weary, stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord rise above it all. Into every new season, every new year, oh Lord, lead us, you know, without any fear. And it's just it was cool to be able to get a New Year's song off, and I'll sing it again this New Year's, and it'll be just as relevant.
You know, you make a really good point about praying. I used to play guitar in my church, in my folk group. I'm Roman Catholic, and
Yeah.
there was one memorable mass, and I'll never forget in the sermon. And the priest was saying, "You could pray for good things for yourself. There's no harm if you want something good and something positive for you." And I think people forget that. You pray for the sick, you pray for the dying, you pray for the homeless. You can pray for yourself to get a job, to get that car. And it's kind of the power of positive thinking combined with the prayer that will help you find a way. And I always found that fascinating. And sometimes you have to think about that and take care of yourself too, and think about yourself in positive ways. So I've always remembered that. And I kind of get what your point going back to praying. There's no harm, no foul in asking God to help you achieve something or get something you want.
And you can pray in the prophetic.
Mhm.
So what else gets lost a lot in different religious, you know, sects, tribes is the prophetic, you know. Prophesy. If you feel something's coming, prophesy it, you know. Speak it into the universe. Speak good. And what you say is so important, you know, how it affects your life, you know. What you say over yourself can be very empowering or disempowering, you know. And a lot of people say nasty stuff about their own self, you know, and that's not going to help you. No. Because the enemy hears this and goes, "Oh, okay, then so it shall be," you know. So your mindset really matters. And
I agree.
so, you know, the grateful spirit of Christmas and time to heal, you know, we can reset. We can always, you know, people that are kind of in and out of it, usually people that don't go to church or think about God at Christmas, they end up going, you know.
We said that to you.
My hope is that they kind of stay, you know, that they find a pastor, they find a church where they feel at home. And we see new people come in our church and they say, "We found a home," you know, and it feels really good to be able to have that confidence from someone, you know, that they would choose our church to be their church. And I don't take that lightly. That's very serious.
I get it. No, that's great. You know, you touched upon this earlier where, you know, you want to make sure that the songs are accurate, they're correct, they go back to the Bible. I imagine religious fans can be very judgmental. Is it difficult to please them with music?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. I mean, you know, a lot of, you know, I tell you, the Christian kind of music community, you know, I just don't, sometimes it seems a little hypocritical, if you will, you know, and they can judge someone like me and say, "Well, how can you possibly be anointed? You know, you play secular music for Journey, you know." Well, why don't you listen, you know, give it a shot. And yet I'll, you know, there'll be people that come on and trash me online, you know. I get them all the time. And I just have to go, you know, I do this with God, and we do this together. And if those people don't like it, they don't like it. You know, it's not for everyone. Certainly, I don't try to evangelize. I just want to minister if I can. If something hits them, you know, like people that hear some of this stuff go, "Wow, this is so fresh. It's fresh. It doesn't sound like anybody else." You know, I'm like, good. I don't want to sound like anybody else, you know. But I have been criticized. You know, how dare you even try, you know, and I just kind of dismiss it.
When you're writing with people, is it possible to turn off the religious content and maybe focus more on the rock content? Or, you know, because Journey, you know, Journey, like you talk secular.
I just wrote a whole album with Neil and the guys called Freedom.
Right.
Spent most of the summer writing lyrics and melodies, and you know, during COVID, we did that whole record while I was doing my worship Christian stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you know, I think the Lord made it more prolific for me. I pray for being a prolific songwriter and being able to not, dwell and just kind of, stumble over these things. And I found myself just having complete freedom with what I wanted to say. And it's almost God just put everything out of the way and gave me complete focus about what's this lyric going to be, and that's always what I wanted to be. What I was missing early on in my career was just the lyrics, getting, and when I met Steve, he helped me, I helped him, John Waite helped me, Michael Bolton and I had a good, even Peter Frampton and I did some good stuff. But when you get to that confident place, there isn't any fear that you're not going to get it, so you're not going to get the song right. Never be afraid of a song or a lyric or like, I won't get this. No, it'll come, but it takes patience. Sometimes it's, a long time before, I remember writing Only the Young. It took me 4 weeks till I finally figured out what that song was. It was just Steve Perry yodeling on a mic, with the spread, and I'm like, what is he saying? What is the song? What is the song? And it hit me. Only the young can say they're free to fly away, boom. I called Steve. I got it. Come over, another hear the thunder of their cry ahead of their time. And they wonder why. It's like, come on. And it just, boom, poured out. I think a song title is the key to unlocking that feeling, that feeling, whatever that song is. Without a good title, without a definite something, there's no foundation, so I'm a title guy. Give me a great title and I'll run with it,
That's great. That's a great insight. Before joining the Babies, before joining Journey, did you ever consider pursuing a solo career as a Christian solo artist?
I never did. It's funny. I probably should have. It would have been easier. But my head wasn't there, my heart wasn't there. I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out with, and when I went to LA, I really, I never went to church,
Wow.
I got so consumed with the business and the world of music business, that I didn't even have a church I went to. It was crazy. When I think back on those days, and I just wanted so badly to make it as a singer-songwriter. And yet I was so green, I had written a couple of decent songs, but I listen to them now. I had to take all the analog tapes and take all the songs I had written and put them on digital. And I understood why they dropped me, It just wasn't,
Wow.
I hadn't arrived yet, and it took getting some rejection. I wrote with this guy that wrote with Bob Dylan, and I was in LA, and he come to write with me, and he said, John, you're a great kid, but you don't have any mud on you. I said, what do you mean? He said, you need mud on you. And the mud was about to come,
Yeah.
because they told me at Warner Brothers that I should get a day job, and I couldn't write, I couldn't
Wow.
sing. Here comes the mud, boom, and are you strong enough to withstand it, because rejection is a tough thing.
Yes.
In our business, so much of what we do, we get rejected, and just a small percentage of what we do gets accepted. That's why, when I understood what Journey was, I thought, I gotta step my game up here. But I have the pieces. I have this wonderful, palette of power. I've got, Neil and Steve Perry and Ross Valerie and Steve Smith and this powerhouse band. All we have to do is put something that sounds like them, and those elements. It's like when you coach a football team and you understand, you've got the team. You're gonna be able to win, with this team, and understanding how those pieces fit. So, being a team player, it was really easy for me to recognize that all we had to do was not mess it up. Don't get in the way. Just let this music flow. And Perry already had a great idea of what Journey was. He already designed it to fly a certain way, and I was going to stay with the blueprint,
Yep.
and it was a great, you couldn't hardly mess that up. You just enhance it, make it. Yeah, it was already there. And his heart and his melodies and stuff were so there. It was just soul, rock, blues. It was all there. It's everything I understood. So I was like, well, we speak the same language, so let's just do this.
When you were young, did you do a lot of praying for yourself to make it? Because I know you came from a religious family. We spoke about your book in 2018. I was wondering, were you praying for success throughout?
I think my father prayed more than I did.
Yeah.
I think my father prayed for me, in a large way. I mean, he was a prophetic man. He already had seen my career happening when I was 8. He said, people would ask him, what is your son going to do with these music lessons? And my dad would look at him and say, well, he's going to be a big star. He's going to play for 10,000 people a night. You know that? And I would just go, like, Dad.
Dad.
And I'd sit there and hear him, how confident he was. And I thought, that's my dad talking about me. I'm going to receive this. And I'm going to take this in my heart and I'm going to keep it, And when they told me I should get a day job, I heard him say, you're going to play for 10,000 people a night. You know what I mean? It's like, there's your vision keeper right there. And, his prayer was going to be meaningful than mine. All I prayed for was to stay out of trouble, And luckily I did, and I had a church experience at 18. I went to this black church, Church of Christ, I think, on the south side of Chicago with my girlfriend, and had an altar call and went up there and just bawled and was on my face, and it was an encounter that, like, God's pulling me back in, and yet I didn't go back to that church. Why didn't I go back? I was moved to tears, but I didn't go back. Why didn't I follow up on it? And so many of us have that come to Jesus moment, but then we don't do anything about it. We have to act, it was interesting. Yeah. So it wasn't until my kids were born, in the 90s, that I really went back to church and took it seriously. I said, the clock's ticking. I got to get them in church. They're going to get baptized. They're going to get confirmed. And so off I went, and I dragged everybody to church every Sunday, as long as, I think, till they were teenagers, and they but so that was profound. I think my birth of my first daughter was so meaningful to me. And I said in the wedding, at the wedding that night, how it changed me as a man. I felt like it completed me as a man. I knew there was something missing. There was a room in my heart that was empty. And when she was born and looked me in the eye, I was like, there it is. That's the closest you can get to heaven, is having a child. And I wrote a song for her called Little River. That is, I think, one of the best things I've ever done as a writer. Profound, because you're not going to control it. Like, first thing I realized, this is a life that I can guide, but I can't control it. So she's going to run wherever she's going to run, and I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to try to steward it, but I can't control it. There's only so much I can do, and I can nurture it and make sure that it runs where it's going to go, but there's no stopping, where kids are going to go. One of my sons ended up being a drug addict. I couldn't stop it. There it was. I had to get him in rehab. It was devastating for both of us. I had never in his destiny did I see that coming. It just came boom like that. So, in a New York minute, as Don Henley says, right?
Yeah. It's funny you talk about your father in that way. He believed in you more than probably maybe even yourself did.
Yes.
Don't Stop Believing, related to your dad, right? Written about your dad.
That's right. It did. It was those days during LA when I was rejection facing massive, and financially I needed money. He sent me some money, gave me a loan. And I asked him a question: should I just give this thing up, come back to Chicago, forget it? And he said, no, you stay the course, stay where you are, don't stop believing,
Yeah.
That he gave me that advice. I wrote it down. Like 5 years. I didn't know what it was, a song or what it was. I just wrote it as like a mantra, looking at it. My little prayer, don't stop believing, John. That's what Dad said,
Awesome.
So, yeah. And then Steve Perry said, you have another title in that magic book of yours, because I had written all these song titles and lyrics, and I was constantly, writing, because I learned early on that when you stop writing, you stop writing. It's a muscle, use it or lose it.
I agree.
So I'm writing. I'm to this day I write lyrics. And there it was. So Lord gave me a chorus. I came in with a chorus, and Steve and we improv'd it into what you hear today. It was about about wanting to be in the music business. It was ironic, like how Steve and I were the singer in the smoky room. I mean, we were both out in nightclubs. We were singing in clubs, and we shared those memories and those days, of wanting so bad to make it. Steve Perry, his demo tape ended up in Herbie Herbert's pot bag. So Herbie Herbert, our manager, back in the day in the 70s, smoked a pot, and you would get it at the San Joaquin Valley. So the pot dealer brought the bag of pot to Herbie, and in the bag of pot was this cassette, and it was Steve Perry with the number on it.
Awesome.
And so Herbie puts it on, and he's freaking out. Oh my God, this kid can sing, plays it for the guys at Journey. This is before I was in the band, and they're like, he sounds like a girl,
Yeah.
And no, Herbie. And so Herbie wasn't going to take no for an answer. So he dragged Steve Perry to one of the gigs and called Neil Sean up, at his hotel, and said, I got Steve Perry. He wants to come up and write a song with you, right? So Steve Perry comes up to Neil's room. They write Lights in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And Neil comes down the elevator, looks at Herbie, and said, you know what? He's pretty good. Come to think, we should give him a shot. And the rest is history. But isn't that funny?
That's a tremendous story. That is a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for your time. I wish you the success with the new EP, Christmas is Love. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas. Be blessed.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Heavy Metal Rock. Global Mind.